exactly. You look exactly like him. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, September 28th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are here to break down a 13-game MLB slate. I thought it was 14 at first, and then I started loading in one of these games, and the total was like 5.5, and I realized that was not a part of the slate for today. But either way, hit that like button as you get in the door, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. You guys know the drill at this point. Not too much baseball left to break down, but we're still here for this slate. Let's start here. Adam, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Nice to have baseball back after yesterday was pretty disappointing. 3-game early slate, 2-game main slate. Not what I really wanted after the football weekend, but nice to get back to it now.
Some of the playoff odds that I'm looking at right now are pretty wild. Like, there's a lot still sort of in play.
Did you see Joe West just completely screw the Red Sox yesterday?
No, but hit me with it. What happened?
I don't know the exact specifics, but Aaron Judge struck out on a foul tip. Christian Vasquez catches it. And then 3 full seconds later, as he goes to transfer it from his glove, he drops it. And Joe West says that he just dropped it and that Judge isn't out. Judge on the next pitch blasts like a game-tying double.
I assume everybody lost their mind. I assume
nobody argued. It was just the whole thing was like really bizarre, but it was like
I assume the manager got the gate immediately.
You would think, but everybody just unless like I'm wrong and I missed it, but as far as I know, just everybody was kind of just like, oh, okay.
All righty. Per Fangraphs, Rays clinched. Red Sox and Yankees both have roughly an 80-something% chance to make the playoffs, but the Blue Jays are at 27%. So there's all sorts of craziness to go there. Winning the division and winning the wild card in the NL West is still sort of up in the air. Similar story for the NL East. Fun times in baseball. That's all I got. That's all I got for baseball. I can't even fake manufacture the fact that there are fun times in baseball. I hope for a lot of ties at the end of the season. That's what I want. I want weird play and nonsense. Either way, shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor of this show. We will talk about Jock Market in a bit. But for now, Adam, I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Let's start it off with me resorting my sheet so I can actually get the first game to the top. And there we go. Orioles and Red Sox. 3.7 run implied total for the O's. 5.6 for the Red Sox. Bruce Zimmerman and Chris Sale. I did not get to much Bruce Zimmerman at 5,200 today. I don't think that we need to spend too much time talking through his 5.32 xFIP via Steamer. Chris Sale, on the other hand, 9,400. How are you feeling about him against Baltimore?
Yeah, it's another pretty good price tag on him. It's kind of the exact same issues that we had last time. We had another start. Chris Sale threw 89 pitches, which is fine, was pulled after 5 innings. Certainly, if they wanted to, he could have gone 6 innings. He didn't. We've yet to see a start where Sale gives you both pitch count and innings upside. Like it's like the games where he does throw 95 pitches, he's inefficient and still throws 5 innings or so. The one game prior to COVID, he did go 6 innings, 95 pitches against Tampa, but we just haven't seen that huge game yet from Sale, which I think is a little bit concerning, assuming he's going to be relatively popular here. It's just a spot, we talked about it before where, yeah, it's a good spot for Chris Sale. He's clearly a good play, but if that top end is sort of lopped off of his range of outcomes because the Red Sox aren't interested in him going, 7 innings at any point, then it makes it a little bit less appealing, assuming the ownership's there. But all of that being said, still a good spot for Sale. He's been a pretty solid pitcher overall this season, 3.38 xFIP, 26.4% strikeout percentage. And that is a little bit artificially low because of the start against Baltimore 2 starts ago where he only struck out 1 guy. The strikeout stuff's been, pretty good for him. Not the levels that you're used to, but overall, it's a good spot. My only concern, the only negative thing I would have to say is, again, how deep will they really let him go into this game?
Yeah, I gave him 4 2/3 just to try to lop off a little bit of my right tail. I got him in 20% of lineups, but pretty similar to Woodruff at 10-3. Go ahead.
Oh, one other thing, and someone mentioned it in chat, and I'd forgotten. That's the other thing that makes Sale like so difficult to, or me like very not confident in talking about Sales. You can look back too and say, oh, well, he's going 5 innings, which he has, but he's been in so many blowouts too. Like there's been a lot of games where it's just like, oh, there's no reason for him to go deeper because it's a 6-run game. If this game is 1-0 after 5 innings and he's thrown 89 pitches, like it's not like the Red Sox don't need to win. They need to win the game. You would think they would want Chris Sale to keep pitching. So I still I think there's a chance that you see him go deeper, but we haven't seen it yet. And that's at least somewhat of a concern when you are talking about his price point and assuming a lot of ownership.
We can just go ahead and skip Zimmerman for right now. Let's talk a little bit about the Red Sox bats. I've got them second on the slate. I assume they're one of the more popular teams. We do have Colorado in Coors today. So Colorado and Washington will be pretty popular, but of the non-Coors teams, I think Boston's at the top of the heap.
Yeah, fantastic spot. Zimmerman so far this year in the majors, 245 expected ISO to righties, 383 expected WOBA. Hasn't even been that good against lefties with a 349 expected WOBA, 171 expected ISO. And now you just get this Red Sox offense with tons and tons and tons of right-handed power, plus Rafael Devers and potentially Alex Verdugo. So absolutely love Boston here. And hopefully the fact that it's a 13-game slate combined with there being a Coors game keeps the ownership in check.
Yeah, they popped like crazy for me from top to bottom, even getting to Christian Vasquez at 3K. These guys aren't even expensive. They're super simple to get to. So don't overthink it.
Yeah, those
here,
prices
folks.
might actually be a problem.
Yeah, Bogarts at 5K is the most expensive. Devers at 4,900. Everybody else is 4,200 or below. It's just craziness. I like that, though, on a day like today for a Coors game, that there are alternatives to get to, and it becomes really easy to get to Boston. I'm anxious to see where the ownership ends up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just quickly looked at the Coors pricing because I was going to say if you had an appropriately priced Coors game and then this Boston pricing, you could actually see Boston come in ahead of those teams. But Coors Field is also not appropriately priced. So
the Nats are pretty expensive. Colorado is
sort of. The bottom is like 3K.
Yeah. I was looking the Escobar, Soto, Bell trio, and Zimmerman even at 4,400 is fine.
But like the only guy in there that isn't at a price point they would normally be at anyway, really, is Escobar. Like Escobar's the only guy that got a clear Coors bump. Juan Soto at 5,900 isn't weird. Bell at 5,300 is a little high. Zimmerman's a little high, but like they're not like crazy prices. The only one that makes 0 sense outside of where they're playing is Escobar.
Escobar's salary looks like they accidentally added 2 days together in a row because there's no chance that he's ever been 5K. He's never been able to hit in his life.
Right.
Orioles bats against Sale. I can't imagine this is the spot you're going to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it. It's kind of just the same thing on repeat for the Orioles. Hayes is good. Mountcastle's good. Mullins may or may not even be in the lineup. Santander may or not be in the lineup. But 13-game slate, it's not like Sale's been a bad pitcher or by any stretch. So I don't see a whole lot of merit to get into the Orioles.
All right, well, let's keep it moving. This one's a big one. Blue Jays and Yankees. Blue Jays need it because they are still alive, but they are chasing both Boston and New York. So Ryu and Taillon, game's a little bit of a coin flip for all intents and purposes. Blue Jays slight favorites. I got Ryu in 8% of lineups. I did not get to Taillon. I'm really interested to see, are you trying to get pitching? Because obviously this is an offensive matchup.
Yeah, not really looking at pitching here. Taillon and Ryu are both good enough where certainly if you're playing 150 lineups and they sneak in, you're not going to like redo your crunches or anything. But I don't really see a strong case for either guy. I mean, the Yankees, sure, they have some strikeout upside in their lineup, but it's not like Ryu's a very good strikeout pitcher. Taillon's going up against a Toronto team that is really, really difficult to strike out and really dangerous. It's just a pretty tough sell. It's not like either guy's really discounted either.
Yeah, I don't anticipate getting too much here. But the question is, I think, well, I don't know what to make a tie on, but I think both guys are good enough that it's also tricky to get to the offenses. I have the Blue Jays 7th. I have the Yankees 9th. Are you going to prioritize offense here a little bit more? Or is this sort of like a scary spot to just be?
It's a scary spot, and I wouldn't say prioritize offense in the sense that like I would necessarily expect the Yankees or the Blue Jays to be my highest owned stacks. But right now we do have the Yankees with a 4% chance of being the top stack, only about 1% aggregate ownership. We have Toronto with a 3% chance of being the top stack, only about 1% aggregate ownership. These are certainly both teams where even though the opposing pitchers are good, they're not great. Ryu still is certainly capable of having a bad start. He's allowed 1.24 home runs per nine. Taillon's just a pretty run-of-the-mill pitcher, 1.56 home runs per nine this year. Granted, a lot more of his power has been to lefties, but it's two pitchers that are good but not great, two offenses that have tons and tons of power and are getting no ownership. So clearly I'm putting the Red Sox ahead of them. You're putting the Coors offenses ahead of them in terms of chances of success. But anytime these two teams are facing, average to slightly above average pitchers and getting no ownership, I think they're very appealing in tournaments.
Yeah, the ownership will be everything. Blue Jays are really expensive at the top, not all that expensive at the bottom. Yankees sort of similar, but much flatter from a salary perspective.
On DraftKings, the highest projected ownership in this game is George Springer at 2.4%.
Did you tell me that we got ownership 4 minutes ago?
That was me doing it like in a discreet way.
Oh, appreciate you. Never mind. I don't want to say what I was going to say. I don't know who that person is that I don't have a name for, but that's neither here nor there. They won't matter. Oh, okay. So this is my number 1 and number 2 leverage spot on the slate. Now that I've pasted in ownership, Blue Jays 1, the Yankees 2, fully unowned. I like getting to both offenses, and that's fun for me in a GPP. Red Sox, the second biggest negative leverage spot behind Colorado. I guess I might as well pull up the top stacks tool to see if that's running the same way for me. So at the top,
it is.
All right, Washington good, Colorado massive, Boston massive, Yankees positive. Where the hell is Toronto? Oh, not too far below them. Yep, also positive. Okay, cool. So I feel pretty good about where I'm standing here. Looking at Blue Jays and Yankees is going to be really fun when I start prepping that crunch. Do you, if you said it, apologies. Do you prefer any side to this game, or is it sort of just the same thing?
It's kind of the same thing to me. Yeah. It's, I guess technically I prefer Toronto. They're favored, but I kind of just view it the same way. You're just kind of betting on how much power each team has. And you're just essentially saying, I don't necessarily think the Yankees are going to have a monster game. I don't necessarily think the Blue Jays are going to have a monster game, but I also don't think that the pitchers that they're facing are good enough where they have a huge margin for error. So if you get, a C+ game from Jameson Taillon, the Blue Jays are probably going to light him up. If you get a C+ game from you, the Yankees are probably going to light him up. So there's not a whole lot to be like analyzed other than if either pitcher is slightly worse than normal, you are in a very, very good spot if you have the opposing offense here, just because of how talented the offenses are.
Probably, apparently, Mateus in chat had one of my showdown head-to-heads last night.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You could have beat me without putting a lineup in.
Yeah, I saw that and I started to say that wasn't much of an accomplishment, but I remembered that we normally end up in the same spot on showdown. Not that we did last night, but it didn't matter.
Oh, no, we were, yeah. If we would have played each other in showdown with separate lineups for the first time this year, we both would have deserved to lose the money anyway. We should have just sent it directly to DraftKings.
Right. I mean, I at least got 20% back. I didn't get $13 back.
That's fair. That's fair. I was probably in more double ups and you were probably in more head to heads.
I probably also just had a better lineup. I didn't have Amari Cooper at captain.
No. Do you know what you finished with? Now I just want to know. So just go figure it out. I'm pulling up mine now. Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm super excited for you to be like
79.83.
You beat me.
Yeah, I figured I had Hurts at captain.
Yeah, I had 69 though, which is nice.
Yeah, you kind of win.
Yeah, we both lose. That's the key piece of all of this information. Neither one of us are winners for yesterday. That's fine. Look, that's never going to be a slate where I'm going to do well in cash. It's just not. Doesn't matter though. But honestly, congrats for picking up the W. I'm happy to give that money out on days like that. Braves and Phils, 3.9 run implied total for Atlanta, 3.7 for the Phillies. Pitching matchup here, Charlie Morton, Zach Wheeler, both guys in the 20s in ownership on DraftKings. I think it's about right. I might be a little bit lighter on both, but either way, two really, really good arms.
Yeah, really good arms, not matchups that make me feel real great, especially, I guess the ownership makes sense. You don't want to go, the way I guess I think about this is if I looked at this and Zach Wheeler was like 10%, I would just be going like, oh my God, let me play. I don't care who he's facing. Give me Zach Wheeler. If he were more popular, I would be pretty actively looking to go elsewhere. So I think the ownership makes sense on him. I think it makes sense on Morton. They both are really good pitchers, like you said. Wheeler has struck out 29.2% of hitters this year. Morton's at 28.2%, both allowing less than a home run per 9 innings. 2.86 xFIP for Wheeler, 3.36 for Morton. Neither offense is great, but there are plenty of strikeouts in the Atlanta lineup from the right side, particularly. The Phillies lineup isn't the best, especially once you get past, the top part of the order. So it's not like the perfect matchup, but it's still a spot where I'm looking to get to both pitchers because of how good they are. And they're not that expensive. Wheeler's 10.5 for Wheeler is pretty healthy. 9,200 for Morton, still probably a little bit lower than he should be, although it is more appropriate than a lot of the weird Charlie Morton pricing we've had recently where he's like 7,500 or 8K.
Yeah. Can you get to offense in this game?
I don't really see it. If it were a smaller slate, I think you could kind of make the case of taking a good offense against a popular pitcher, but it's a pretty tough sell for me here, especially like when you look at, I think the spot that I would get to the most, but it applies to both teams. Like Atlanta, the guys that you would really want, Freeman, Albies, Riley, they're really expensive. On the Phillies side, Harper costs more than Juan Soto does today in Coors. Granted, it's by $100, but it still sounds good. JT Realmuto is $5,400. So it's not even like you're getting any sort of a discount on the guys that you would really want to roster.
No one popped in my sim more than 1%, so I have nothing to talk about offensively here. So we can just keep it moving to Twins and Tigers. 5.5 run implied total for the Twins, 4 for the Tigers. Charlie Barnes and Tyler Alexander. Do we not have Barnes in the ownership? Is he not officially named?
He's not confirmed, I don't think.
Okay. Not confirmed, so that is fine. I don't think I'm going to get to too much pitching here. I get maybe a little bit of Barnes because it's a great strikeout matchup, but he's bad. I'd rather just skip pitching. Well, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I guess I would have to say is Barnes is 5,100. He threw 71 pitches last time out. He is facing the Tigers, which, like you said, gives you some strikeout upside. But at the same time, 16 starts at AAA this year, 76 innings pitched, only a 19.1% strikeout percentage for Barnes. It's not like this is a guy that put up good strikeout numbers at AAA and has struggled some in the majors, and now he's facing a high strikeout team. The Tigers are still clearly better than your average AAA team, so I still don't anticipate Barnes really having success here.
Well, talk to me a little bit about what you're going to do with Minnesota. They are my number 4 stack overall, sort of negative leverage, but it's not really. I mean, they're cheap. They're crazy cheap at the bottom. And Buxton is the guy that's driving most of the ownership at 23%. Everybody else is 15 or below. How are you going to handle Minnesota against Tyler Alexander?
We are super low on Minnesota in the top stack tool right now, but I think that's influenced again by Barnes not being confirmed. I don't know exactly how our stuff works, but I have noticed by this point that like when we don't have a confirmed starter, the offense ends up being wonky too early in the day. So I'm not reading into that yet. I do think it's a good spot for Minnesota. They have a lot of right-hand power. Like you said, Buxton's pulling a lot of ownership. He's 4,700 in a good spot. The rest of the team, though, not that popular. Garver, 15% as a 4K catcher on DraftKings makes a lot of sense. Donaldson's underpriced at 4,300. Polanco, the only other guy 10% or higher. So I do like the spot. Tyler Alexander this year has allowed a 211 expected ISO to righties, 341 expected WOBA. There's a lot of right-handed power here with Buxton, Polanco, Donaldson, Garver, Rooker, Sano. If Astudillo is in the lineup, he doesn't strike out. Not a ton of power, but he's a cheap guy that, is at least going to put the ball in play. It's just I think it's a pretty solid lineup for Minnesota in this particular spot against the lefty that doesn't get strikeouts and gives up a lot of power.
Lost my tab here. We back. God. I'm going to have... I think I'm probably going to get to a decent amount of Minnesota just because Buxton is the only guy that's really driving this from a negative perspective.
At the very least, like mini stacks make a ton of sense here. Absolutely.
What about for the Tigers? They're not really pulling any ownership. Castro is pulling some. He's 2,500 at second. Baду is getting to 6. Nobody else getting any ownership. Middle of the pack team, but I do like targeting a little bit against Charlie Barnes.
Yeah, agreed. And right now we have Detroit 4th in top stack percentage. That'll come down once we get an actual pitcher for Minnesota confirmed, but it's not going to change the fact that I do think it's a reasonably high upside spot for the Tigers. They're not a good offense again, and they are outside of Detroit. I prefer rostering them at home, but Barnes in his very limited sample in the majors this year, whoops, that's not him, has only struck out 10% of right-handed hitters, 240 expected ISO, 404 expected WOBA. Give me some Jonathan Scope, give me some Grossman, even a $3,600 Cabrera makes some sense. Eric Haas, certainly a good option. So never going to look at the Tigers, like, oh, I'm going to jam them in ahead of Coors Field and the Red Sox and all these, really good offenses. But I do think that assuming they get no ownership, it is a pretty good spot. This game in general, I think just has the potential to give you quite a bit of offense. The only real negative, I think, is that, it is Minnesota in late September, but I think it's also supposed to be in the 70s today. So not the biggest concern there.
Okay. Anything else in this game?
No.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about the schedule for the rest of the day. We are a little bit lighter than we normally are. These Tuesdays without any NFL really calms everything down. So at 11 a.m., we have the NFL strategy matchup show. Laffy, Ben, and Jordan will break it all down. Not Jordan behind the virtual glass. He's behind our virtual glass right now. And then we're just back to baseball. 5 p.m. MLB Deeper Dive. Adam and I are going to do this bad boy again, leading into Live Before Lock at 6 with Eric and Greg. Our player projections are free today. So if you're still playing MLB, good for you. Our projections are free. Plus, if you're playing golf this week, Sanderson Farms PGA Top Golfers tool, also free. We move it on to Cardinals and Brewers. 3.5 run implied total for the Cards. 3.7 for the Brewers. Adam Wainwright and Brandon Woodruff. Woodruff pulling a ton of ownership. Second most owned pitcher. By the way, Chris Sale was at 31%. Just to circle back to that since we didn't touch on it. Feels a little high. Woodruff at 27%. He should be. He's really, really good. I'm a little bit more interested to see where you stand on Wainwright at just 7%.
I like him in tournaments if you're going to more popular bats. If you're using the Red Sox, if you're using Coors Field, I think that's where Wainwright makes sense because on the one hand, he's nowhere near as good a strikeout pitcher as somebody like Charlie Morton, who's $200 more, or Walker Buehler, who's $100 more. But on the other hand, the matchup against Milwaukee is not terrible. They only have a 3.7 implied run total. There are some strikeouts in that lineup. And Wainwright overall this year has been pretty solid. Only a 20... I thought it was higher than that, but only a 21.2% strikeout percentage, but a 3.86 xFIP, less than 1 home run per 9 innings. Basically, the case you'd be making is not that you think Wainwright's best game is as good as Morton's best game or Buehler's best game, but that Morton and Buehler are in relatively dangerous spots. And there's certainly going to be plenty of times if you played this slate 1,000 times where for one reason or another, whether he pitches exceptionally well or they both struggle, Wainwright just ends up the best out of that trio. So it's not a priority for me, but I do think that there's going to be specific lineup builds where I just, even though I think, there's a lot of better pitching options in his price range, where I just think the low ownership on Wainwright makes that particular lineup better.
All right. Yeah, he popped in like a 2x manner for me. I got him in 13% of sims, so I have some interest in him from a GPP perspective. What I don't have interest in is going to Milwaukee or Cardinals bats, but I do want to get a little bit more out of you for Woodruff. Let's sort of rank these top guys. We've got Wheeler at 10.5, Woodruff at 10.3, Sale at 9,400. They are the first three guys that we sort of need to look at here. Rank those three: Wheeler, Woodruff, Sale.
I mean, I think the ownership's correct. Like when you consider that Sale's basically $1,000 less expensive, I'd put him 1, I'd put Woodruff 2, I'd put Wheeler 3. But it's also not with very strong, it's not with like a lot of conviction, which I think is also reflected in the ownership where they're all between 26 and 31%. But it's really Sale gets number 1 for me just because of the price. Woodruff gets the slight edge over Wheeler because he's a slightly better strikeout pitcher. And then Wheeler's third, but again, not because I dislike Wheeler.
Okay. Felt like now is the time to do that. Jordan, do we have new prompts? Can you type like YouTube and support with exclamation points? Is that like a real thing? Okay. I had no idea what you were doing right now, so I figured I'd ask.
Jordan's chugging his vodka already is what he's doing.
Yeah. Enjoy that tea time. Anyway, I don't have anything else to talk about for this game. Like it's just, I can't get there offensively. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't see any reason to get there offensively. The one other thing I would mention, and it's not really a concern in the context of the slate, but Woodruff does sort of have those same, not to the same extent as Sale, but we've seen Woodruff basically, and it makes a ton of sense based on where Milwaukee's at in the standings. He's going 6 innings and he's just going to the bench. Like his last start, you've seen several of them recently, 93 pitches in 6 innings with 10 strikeouts, 90 pitches over 6 innings with 7 strikeouts, 4 starts ago, 92 pitches, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts. If Milwaukee were in games that mattered, you're almost definitely getting that 7th inning and 105 pitches from Woodruff. And because they're not, you're almost definitely not getting that here. But at this point in the season, that's not that big of a deal because a lot of teams are in similar situations. And so you're kind of just looking at it like, okay, Woodruff, maybe doesn't have quite as high a ceiling as he did 2 months ago, but most pitchers on this slate aren't going to.
Rangers and Angels, 4.4 run implied total for the Rangers, 4.6 for the Angels. AJ Alexy going for Texas, and in the shock of all shocks, Packy Naughton going for the Angels.
This dude pitches every day.
I don't get it any longer. By the way, I don't think he's even pitched all that much. That's what's really crazy.
I think it's just whatever days we do shows.
It's unquestionably every day that we do shows at this point. But the craziest part of it all is he's only made 4 starts since September 1st. Like, which isn't crazy, but like he only has 4 starts in the majors this year. Yeah,
I would have guessed he had like 8.
I feel like I've made a Packy Naughton joke like 27 times at this point. It's 4. He pitched 1 game on August 27th where he went 4 innings but wasn't the starter. So if we want to call that 5, that's fine. I feel like we've been talking about Packy Naughton every single. He's like a hitter. It's like he's on the slate every day.
Right.
Anyway, AJ Alexy 6,300, Packy Naughton 5,300. If I'm getting to anyone, it's Alexy, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get to neither of them.
Yeah, I would lean towards Alexy. I mean, you can make a case for a $5,300 pitcher against Texas, I guess. But I think hitter pricing's soft enough on this slate that I probably wouldn't go there. Alexy's kind of interesting to me because we don't have a lot of, we only have 4 major league starts for him. Really, really good start against Colorado. Really good start against this Angels team. Terrible start in each of his last 2, but those were against Houston and the Yankees. This is someone that, pulling his numbers back up now, but if I remember correctly, struck guys out at the AAA level. He's only 23. I think there's a decent chance that he ends up, being a prospect. AAA this year, 3 starts for Texas. He threw 50 innings at AA. At AAA, he struck out 33%. At AA, struck out 28.8%. Steamer has him striking out 8.2 hitters per 9 innings. My point here being that I do think the Angels give you some strikeouts. If you need to pay down at pitching, I do think there's upside on Alexy. Obviously, there's a low floor as well. This is someone that probably isn't ready for the major leagues yet, and the Angels, are still a Major League Baseball team. But I do think there is plenty of upside for Alexy, and I don't want to be too deterred by his 2 most recent starts because they did just come against teams that are in a completely different class of offense than the Angels.
Absolutely. Offense, though, I think we do need to talk about in this game. I have the Angels 5th, something that doesn't happen all that frequently. I have the Rangers 10th. Although the Angels are pulling a little bit of ownership with Marsh and Ohtani. Are you trying to target offense in this game?
The Angels are super, super cheap here. Ohtani obviously accepted, but Brandon Marsh most likely leading off at 2,200. Jared Walsh is only 3,600. I think both of those guys look good. I'm not even going to argue against Gosselin and Mayfield, assuming they're hitting in the middle of the order because they're so cheap. Stassi's a cheap catcher option. I don't really know because like Coors Field is pretty cheap and because the Red Sox are so cheap. I think that makes the Angels a little bit less valuable relatively. But if you wanted to do something like Woodruff plus Wheeler or, Sale or whatever, you want to go to in that price range, I think the Angels are a team that's going to let you get some good one-offs around them. They're in a relatively high upside spot against a pitcher that probably isn't quite ready for the majors. So the pricing makes me interested in the Angels. Individually, I really like Marsh, Ohtani, and Walsh.
Marsh, Ohtani, and Rengifo are the 3 that pop the most for me. It's because he's a $2,200 shortstop, so it's not like it's super duper shocking. So it's just those prices are non-existent. They have a free. They're like buy one get one
right
at this point in time. What about Rangers bats? I think they're just sort of middle of the road, but I don't mind targeting Packy Naughton.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I'm less interested in Texas just because they don't have that same salary selling point that the Angels do. They're more of just an appropriately priced team that is one of the worst offenses in baseball, but facing a pitcher that I don't think is very good either. I'm certainly not going to say, don't play Adolis Garcia, don't play Nick Solak. They're fine, but I don't really feel strongly at all. And you're not getting any real discount there.
Okay. Well, that works for me. I don't have anything else in this game. Do you?
No.
Royals and Indians, 3.9 run implied total for the Royals, 3.8 for the Indians. Brady Singer, Aaron Savale. No ownership coming to Savale, 8,700. I think that's fine. Brady Singer, on the other hand, 17% owned, 8,300. Maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like he's a bit over-owned here.
Yeah, there's no way that stays. Right?
I got him in 4% of lineups.
I looked at it. My first thought when I looked, and I like Brady Singer. I was really disappointed.
He's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I
was really disappointed when he was scratched last start, but the main reason I was disappointed was he was like 5,300 and people weren't expected to roster him. So him jumping to 8,300 against a league average Cleveland offense doesn't make me think that he's going to be that popular. He's coming off of a strong start against Cleveland, September 20th, struck out 7 on 97 pitches. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't get the ownership here. And if he is still projected to be that popular as we get closer to lock, I'm not really going to be interested. 4.09 xFIP is fine. 22.5% strikeout percentage. He's just kind of like, I think, an average pitcher in terms of his results. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, but Cleveland's a pretty average offense. The ownership's there. The salary came up. He seems pretty over-owned to me.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. So it does make me feel pretty good that you and I are on the same page with regards to Singer. Do you have any interest in Savale? What are your thoughts on Savale? Let's start there.
He's kind of just like a guy. The matchup against KC is okay, but they don't strike out a lot. He is not a great strikeout pitcher on his own. Also only threw 45 pitches his last time out. He got lit up. That's why he gave up 7 runs. 91 pitches 2 starts ago. So yeah, pitch count isn't an issue here. Overall this season, he's only struck out 20.2% of hitters, 4.29 xFIP. I'm not really looking to get to him, but I will say that if for whatever reason your 2 options were like Savale at 1% or Singer at 17%, I would rather have Savale.
That's where I was going with this. I have Savale just projected slightly ahead of Singer. Nothing too crazy. They might as well be the same. But if one is 17% owned and the other one isn't, I can promise you the 17% owned guy is probably not going to get into my lineup given what we've got here. So at least we're on the same page. Pay close attention to the ownership as we get closer to lock. Is this an offense spot for you? Are you more interested to get to Cleveland if Singer maintains that ownership?
Not really. It's still not enough on a 13-game slate for me to really care that much. I like Ramirez. I'm always fine with Reyes. Bobby Bradley's only 3,300, which is pretty nice, but it's another just, I think, pretty decent pitcher. It's an average offense. There's a lot of above average offenses at either really good pricing and or in really good spots today. So it's tough for me to get to Cleveland, and it's kind of the same thing with Kansas City. I don't think Savali's great, but I don't think he's bad. Salvador Perez, always one of the top catching options, but he's also priced appropriately. You get a discounted Benintendi batting cleanup most likely at 3,900, but there's just nothing that really stands out to me from this game. I think most of the guys that I would want to roster as hitters are expensive and, priced where they should be.
All righty. That works. I guess I should ask Royals bats, but it's not really something that I'm super interested in.
No, I touched on him anyway.
Perfect.
Good point from Sean V in chat. I hadn't noticed that, but Kike Hernandez on DraftKings now only outfield eligible, no longer second base eligible. So that just makes it so, you kind of have to make more decisions in your Red Sox stack.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be a little bit harder to get Kike in. It should naturally lower his ownership a little bit.
Be careful on the good point to Sean V comments you're making. Just say there's a good point in chat. Like, don't skip who gave it to you. We don't want chat to think that he is a source of information that should be paid attention to,
as long as he's giving factual information, it's I guess I'll just even it out. Bad point to Sean V. I don't care that $3,600 CJ Cron is cold lately.
That must have been earlier, I guess.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I want to hear. Anyway, MLB Strategy Show is the promo code, ladies and gents, mostly gents. Get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. You get access to everything we've got: projections, ownership, premium Slack, lineup builder, top stacks, top pitchers, top stacks. If we're talking about football, it's all included. So MLB Strategy Show, one big word, gets you 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. We're moving on to White Sox and Reds. 5.1 run implied total for the White Sox, 3.9 for the Reds. Ronaldo Lopez and Riley O'Brien. Lopez 13% owned. I'm a little lighter there. O'Brien 1% owned. That's about right. What are you doing with pitching here? How do you feel about Lopez?
Well, I'll say first, I'm trying to figure out who the hell Riley O'Brien is. So as far as Lopez goes, not really easy to get to him, I don't think. 7,300 is an okay price. He's getting 12% ownership. He's such an enigmatic pitcher. Like, he should be better than he is. Sometimes he has great strikeout stuff. Other times he can't get anyone out. Overall this season, a 22.5% strikeout percentage as a starter, 4.02 xFIP. He's kind of just there. If I need a pitcher at 7,300, I'm fine going to him. Like, I would certainly rather go to a $7,300 Lopez than a $6,600 Waka against Houston. I'd probably rather go there than $7K Weaver against the Giants, although the ownership gap is kind of appealing. Point just being that there's not really strong options in that price range. So I think that's why you'll see Lopez in some lineups, just because he's kind of the best of the group.
Okay. White Sox bats are not pulling nearly as much ownership as I was expecting. They are my third favorite leverage stack behind the Blue Jays and the Yankees. I have them sixth overall. Do you want to take some Chicago bats to target Riley O'Brien?
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. This is his major league debut. He made 22 starts at AAA this year, 112 innings pitched. He was okay, 24.7% strikeout percentage, but he walked 11.2% of hitters, 4.61 xFIP. Just numbers that when you're putting them up at AAA, and also he's almost 27 years old. So he's putting those numbers up as an old dude at AAA. It's not like he's, 22 and playing a level ahead of where he should be. He's not where he should be age-wise. So it's just another point in the direction of this dude probably isn't very good. And, now he's making his major league debut against a good White Sox team. Guys that walk a lot of hitters in the minors are always concerning to me, especially when it doesn't come with elite strikeout numbers. Because it's one thing, like, if you have elite strikeout numbers and you walk a lot of guys, you're probably someone that just has nasty stuff and don't have a lot of control. But in the majors, that can still play because you have really, really good stuff. If you're striking out like a normal amount of hitters and walking a lot of guys, it's concerning because it means your stuff probably isn't that good. And the minor league hitters just have less plate discipline than major league hitters. So if you're walking way too many of them at AAA, there's a pretty good chance that in the majors, you're A, putting a lot of guys on base with walks, but B, you're working behind in counts more often with not very good stuff, most likely. So that can put you in a really, really bad spot. I think that's a pretty big red flag on O'Brien. And it makes me really interested in getting to the White Sox here. When we don't really know what to expect from this guy, I just think there's a pretty good chance that he is someone that I would really like to target. And this is a team that certainly has tons of power in their lineup. They're reasonably priced. The only hitters in the projected lineup above 5K are Tim Anderson and Luis Robert. Everyone else in the middle of the order is in the 4K range. Bottom of the order is cheap, sub 4K. So no real issues with the pricing. I like getting to the White Sox here, especially because they are not projected to be nearly as popular as teams like Boston or the Coors Field teams.
Sean V saying I don't shit on chat, just on him. I would never just shit on you. I'd be afraid you'd like it. Oh, God. Reds bats? It's not for me.
No.
They're not owned.
Max, if Schrock is sitting second at 2,500, that's a pretty good price point. But overall, I just think that there's going to be better spots to target than, call it 5 innings of Ronaldo Lopez and then the White Sox bullpen.
He's our top chatter according to Nightbot. Is that real? Oh my God. And we trust computers to drive cars now. What a terrible assessment.
Also, one more negative on Lopez.
I was hoping that was a negative on Sean V when you started saying it. I was like, this is going to be great.
I'm not playing into your weird obsession here.
That's fair.
So I don't think I mentioned it when I was talking about him. I'm kind of lukewarm on him just because, again, there aren't really options at that price range. But how deep he's going to go into the game is also a legitimate concern. Yeah. 3 1/3, 65 pitches last time out. 4 innings, 81 pitches, 5 innings, 90 pitches in his last 3 starts. It's a lot more likely that he underwhelms in terms of how deep he goes into this game than that he, pleasantly surprises you. So just another reason to sort of, he's fine at 7,300, but I'm not going to be too excited about him.
Okay, that works. Let's keep it moving then. Astros and Rays, 4.9 run implied total for the Astros, 4.3 for the Rays. It's Jose Urquidy and Michael Wacha, and neither guy getting any real ownership. No surprise. They're two really solid offenses. Urquidy's at 4%. I'd actually get to 7 given that price tag. I don't mind the price, but it's just a tough matchup for both sides. Do you like any pitching?
No, not really. Just two offenses that I really like. Urquidy is just kind of a middle of the road pitcher, I think. Overall this season, he's only struck out 21.4% of hitters. 4.29 xFIP is fine, but just not the type of pitcher that I really want going up against Tampa. The Rays give you strikeout upside because they do have some high strikeout guys in their lineup, but they're also a really, really productive offense. It makes me really nervous when you're looking at a guy that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts and more or less pitches to contact going up against a team like Tampa Bay. I think that it's just a really, really dangerous spot for him. And it's not like he's cheap. Wacha on the other side is inexpensive. He has struck out 24.3% of right-handed hitters this year, which is nice. The issue is that he's also allowed a 373 expected WOBA, 237 expected ISO. Against lefties, only a 20.5% strikeout percentage, 342 expected WOBA, 197 expected ISO. Going up against this Astros team that is tough to strike out, has tons and tons of power from both sides of the plate. I think it's really tough to get the Wacha.
Yeah, you and me both. I think it's tough to want to get to these offenses, Astros or Rays. They're like 12th and 14th for me. No ownership. So it feels like Jays, Yankees light in this one.
Yeah, pretty much. I think between the two teams, I do have a preference here towards Houston, whereas in the Jays and Yankees game, I didn't really care. But Wacha just gives up some pretty crazy power numbers, and you have tons of power on Houston. The issue is that they're really expensive. Out of the top 6 hitters in their projected lineup, Yuli Gurriel is the least expensive on DraftKings at $4,800. So this is a team that it's going to be pretty tough to stack the good part of the order without making some pretty substantial sacrifices at pitching on a slate where I don't think there's a lot of good cheap pitching. So that'll be tough, but you can also, work in the bottom of the order, use McCormick if he's in the lineup, Myers, Maldonado, whatever guys are at the bottom are inexpensive. So you can do that, but it does sort of weaken the stack as a whole. So that's a negative. On the other side with Tampa Bay, a little bit more favorable pricing. Brandon Lau, Franco, Cruz, the only guys above 5K. But Urquidy has done a better job this year of limiting power, particularly against lefties. 144 expected ISO, 278 expected WOBA. Righties only a 315 expected WOBA, but he has allowed a 202 expected ISO. I think Tampa Bay is still a high upside stack, but I like the matchup for Houston a bit more.
That works. I'm looking now. I did run a crunch earlier with just 5-man stacks set up. I wanted to see if either of these teams were popping up. Not for the Astros. Okay, I am getting to a lot of the Rays, which doesn't totally shock me. Not a fun spot, but the lack of ownership is certainly helping. They would be just a leverage stack for me. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't have anything else for Houston. Actually, favorite bat in this game, since it's loaded with bats, but kind of hard to stack. Kyle
Tucker at 5,100, just because he's the least expensive of the really good Astros.
Give me Brandon Lau at no ownership, 5,200.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Time to talk about it. Course time, 6.4 run implied total for Colorado, 5.6 for the Nats, Kyle Freeland and Pat Corbin. Corbin worked out last time I got to talk about him. Today's not going to be that day. $7,600 Pat Corbin is not a guy that I'm going to. Neither is Kyle Freeland at 5,700. I don't want the pitching.
If I had to go to pitching, I would go to Freeland before I went to Corbin because he is only 5,700. There is a lack of cheap pitching. He is, I think, a pretty decent pitcher. But all of that said, Washington has one of the lowest strikeout percentages in baseball since the trade deadline. They've been an above average offense, which I'm not convinced that continues. I think a lot of that is driven by Juan Soto being so damn good. But still, it's a team that's going to put the ball in play. So like Freeland at 5,700 certainly has that path to like 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, and paying off the salary there, but still not someone I'd really want to prioritize. Corbin, you're not even really getting a course field discount. $7,600 is basically just Corbin's price tag anyway, based on his talent. And if anything, it's too high. So if I go pitching here, I could see Freeland getting into some lineups.
All righty. Well, let's go hitting Colorado, my number one stack. They are the most over-owned team for me as well. We have Washington with higher stack odds than Colorado. I have Washington third. Either way, they are very, very highly ranked for a top stack. But Washington is not pulling nearly the ownership that Colorado is. So let's just have a bigger conversation here. The price tag is probably part of the reason for Washington, but which side of this game are you more likely to get to?
I prefer the Rockies side, but given the ownership, Washington. I think that the pricing and the matchup is better for the Rockies. But when you compare the projected ownership right now, like for example, I think $3,600 CJ Cron is arguably the best play on the entire slate. But he's also getting 31% ownership on DraftKings. It's a 13-game slate. There's never a shortage of first base options. And so whenever a hitter is going to be 31% owned, it's just not really a spot that I'm going to love getting to. Whereas, and he's not even the highest owned guy on the Rockies. Story is higher. Rogers is higher. Colton Welker, if he's in the lineup, projected to be right now, is just shy of 30%. Whereas you look at the Nats, and I respect Freeland as a pitcher, but only 16% ownership going to Soto, only 16% going to a $4,100 Lane Thomas leading off. Everyone else in the lineup is projected less than 10% ownership. So even though I prefer taking hitters against Corbin, even though I think hitters like Story and Rogers and Cron are better than pretty much everyone except Soto and Bell on the Nats, I'm still more inclined to get to the Nats in tournaments because of the gap in ownership.
I'm really surprised to see some of the ownership on these Nats guys. I thought it was going to be higher, but I guess I get it. Colorado's ownership is just bonkers, and there's no way around it. Brendan Rodgers, 3,900, 36% owned. Trevor Story, 4,600, 37% owned. Cron, 3,600, 31% owned. Even Colton Welker, 2,200, 29% owned. It's so much ownership. In a way, it sort of ruins the slate by having this pricing be like this. Look, how could it be so bad? Like, this is not coming up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I have no idea. And I haven't built cash lineups yet, obviously, because it's 10:45 in the morning. But I feel pretty confident saying I'm getting to a lot of Rockies in cash. Rogers, Cantor mentioned in chat, may or may not be in the game. But if he's in the lineup, I think he's clearly one of the top, if not the top second base option. CJ Cron, I mentioned it before, probably when you factor in price, the best play on the slate. I mean, Corbin this year has allowed a 228 expected ISO to right-handed hitters. He's only struck out 16.8%. At home this season, CJ Cron has a 447 WOBA, 341 ISO against left-handed pitching, not just at home, just in general. 416 WOBA, 279 ISO against lefties in cores, which you're getting into pretty small samples now, but 526 WOBA, 455 ISO. And this dude is $3,600 against a left-handed pitcher that doesn't strike out righties and gives up a ton of power. Very, very clearly, you want to be getting to these guys in cash. It's more so, and in tournaments, I mean, if you have if you have like the Yankees or the Blue Jays or one of these like 1% owned teams, by all means, use these really good Rockies. But in general, it's just going to be hard to get to that much ownership on the slate, even though the pricing is really good.
It's bonkers. It's truly bonkers pricing. I don't have anything else to say here. We're definitely going to talk about it more on the deeper dive. Pay close attention to the ownership. Know what you have in your lineups if you're going to the Rockies. Nats, though, looking like a better option as of right now just because of ownership.
Agreed.
Jock market, everybody. If you haven't heard, they're turning fantasy sports into a stock exchange, whether it's NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA. You can use their pregame IPO phase to buy shares of your favorite players and then buy, sell, or hold throughout the game based on your analysis. My example always, if you buy shares of a leadoff hitter and he goes yard, you could lock those profits in. You could sell him immediately, take the cash right away, or wait it out, hoping that he climbs the table even more. Download the app to get started. Use our exclusive Awesemo promo, which is Awesemo, to get up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. Take advantage of it today. Shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor. Now, Giants and Diamondbacks. Logan Webb and Luke Weaver. Webb, 23% owned. I wanted to say it feels a little bit high, but Arizona's not very good.
Yeah, they're not. And Logan Webb is extremely good. So I like Webb here. I think the ownership is deserved. The price tag, I think, is probably a little bit cheaper than it should be. Coming off of a rough start against the Padres, and he has not been quite as sharp recently anyway. 4 earned runs against the Padres, 2 against Atlanta, 5 against the Cubs, 3 against the Rockies, but that was a game in Coors, so kind of willing to write that one off. But overall this season, he's been excellent. 26.2% strikeout percentage, 2.83 xFIP is actually the best on the slate. It's ahead of Zach Wheeler. 0.6 home runs per 9, only walking 6% of hitters, facing a really bad Arizona team in an excellent place to pitch. I really, really like Logan Webb here.
You and me both. I don't have anything else to really add. I definitely don't want any Luke Weaver in this spot, though.
I wouldn't say that.
Ooh, okay. Talk to me.
I don't want Luke Weaver against the Giants, but it goes back to what we were saying when we talked about Reynaldo Lopez. If you're getting to teams like the Astros that are expensive, or some of these other expensive bats, I think there's going to be some builds where you end up wanting or needing a pitcher in that 7K range. And Reynaldo Lopez is okay, but like I said at the time, 1, he's not that good, and 2, he's got pitch count concerns. He's getting 12.5% ownership, whereas Weaver is getting 1%. It's still a really, really good park to pitch in. You're not going to have Brandon Belt in the Giants lineup today because he broke his thumb. There is a pitcher that he gets to face. So yeah, the Giants are good. They have a 5 implied run total. Weaver is, I think, a pretty middle of the road pitcher. Talent wise, I would say he's pretty comparable to Reynaldo Lopez in terms of what you expect. I just think that it's a situation where if like everybody that ends up on a 7K pitcher is going to go to Reynaldo Lopez, I don't mind having some Luke Weaver instead.
Okay, that's fair. Do you want to get the Giants bats against Luke Weaver?
Really, really ownership dependent. Right now, they're not getting much, so I think it's fine. Like, this is still a really good offense. You have a cheap Tommy La Stella leading off. Posey and Wade are reasonably priced. Wilmer Flores is 2,500 on DraftKings for whatever reason. So I don't mind it. They're not a priority for me. The park still sucks to hit in. Weaver, though, has a lot of 203 expected ISO to righties this year, 184 to lefties, only striking out about 15% of lefties so far. So I think it's a pretty high upside spot for the Giants. I still wouldn't put them ahead of, Coors teams or the Red Sox or anything.
I don't have anything for the Diamondbacks. That much I can tell you.
No, I mean, Cole Calhoun's 2,300. That's cool, I guess.
Mariners and A's, 3.9 run implied total for the Mariners, 4.2 for the A's. Tyler Anderson and Chris Bassett. No ownership going to Anderson. No real ownership going to Bassett at 8,500. Don't know how deep he's going to go into this game. Are you going to be able to get to Bassett?
I don't think so. He only threw 48 pitches in 3 innings last time out. He pitched well, only gave up 1 hit, struck out 4. My concern is just that, I guess there's like a non-zero chance that he, threw like somehow got ramped up and is going to go like deep into this game. But I think it's very, very, very unlikely. So if you're assuming he's going to throw something like 70, 75 pitches here on a slate that is as loaded with pitching at the, top end as this one is, it's not like you're getting any sort of salary discount on Bassett. So I think it's pretty tough.
Alrighty. At that point in time, then, I don't have much in this game. I don't really want to go to Oakland. I don't really want to go to Seattle. Oakland is my number 16 team. They're not getting owned, but that's about it for this game. It's just not a priority altogether.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Oakland's implied run totals as low as it is. Anderson's a decent pitcher, but 180 expected ISO to righties, 325 expected WOBA, and tons of right-handed power in the A's lineup. But at the same time, only supposed to be like 55 degrees in Seattle. It's still not a great place to hit. There are a lot of good offenses on the slate. So I'm never upset when I get to Oakland, but I don't think I'll get to a lot of them on this one.
Same for the Mariners. Not going to be your cup of tea today.
Not seeing it.
All righty. Then we close it out with Dodgers and Padres. 4.5 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.3 for the Pods. Walker Buehler, and people are going to say Yu Darvish. It doesn't appear that it's going to be Yu Darvish tonight. I think that he's going to get skipped. So this one's kind of tricky to talk about right now.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Darvish wasn't likely to pitch.
Yeah. So it makes it a little difficult to talk about.
What makes you think he's getting skipped?
It was okay. So this is crazy. It was the note on him earlier today, before we started this show, that they were looking to skip his Tuesday start. I am not seeing that note any longer.
Like on DraftKings, you mean?
It was from RotoWire.
Okay.
So I saw it while I was on FanGraphs. I'm looking to see if it's still here.
Had you woke up yet, or were you dreaming about this?
No, dead serious. This was probably at like 8:30. It's gone now. So I guess he is starting, because FanGraphs had, what the hell was that guy's name?
Pierce Johnson.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, he's still on there. FanGraphs right now has Pierce Johnson and Yu Darvish.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, it appears that he is just there now. So Darvish is unowned. Walker Buehler's at 16%. I prefer Walker Buehler, but I like that Darvish ownership, but I just don't really want to target the Dodgers bats.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it is for me. Darvish certainly gives you tons of strikeout upside. You can make the same sort of case for Yu Darvish that I did with Adam Wainwright, where it's for different reasons, but kind of the same logic. Darvish is one of the best strikeout pitchers on the slate. He has a higher strikeout percentage than every pitcher except Woodruff, and he's tied with Wheeler. So clearly the ceiling for him is still really high. The matchup's not good. But when you look at the pitching, around him, you have 20+% ownership going to Wheeler, Woodruff, Webb, Sale, Morton, 16% going to Buehler on the other side of this game. And then you have Darvish at 3%. So you can make the case where it's just like, yeah, I don't think it's particularly likely he does well, but when he does well, he certainly can outscore these other pitchers at much, much lower ownership. So if I wanted to get to, some of those good Rockies bats or the Red Sox or whatever, taking a risk on Darvish makes some sense. But overall, he's not going to be a priority for me just because it is a really tough matchup. There is plenty of other pitching that looks really good.
Do you have anything you want to add for Buehler? I think he's properly owned.
Yeah, I think he's properly owned. I think the price tag's pretty cheap on him. The Padres offense is it's dangerous, but it's not as scary to me as the Dodgers. They only have a 3.2 implied run total. Buehler has a 25.5% strikeout percentage, 3.6 xFIP this year. The Dodgers are in the playoffs. They could still catch the Giants for the division. They're 2 games back. So, I'm not expecting like a crazy short leash on Buehler or anything. I think he's a good option at 9,100. He has struggled a bit lately. I'm not too concerned about that, but obviously you would feel better if, he hadn't been pitching poorly lately. But yeah, I just think that he's pretty much coming in where he is on slates where the top end pitching wasn't as loaded as the slate is. I think he'd be getting a lot of ownership at this price point, as is, I understand why he's getting a little bit less than these other guys, but, still getting 16%.
Like if I get Dodgers bats or Padres power, it's cool, but I don't think that this is a spot where I'm getting to a lot of offense.
Yeah, I don't really see much here, especially when you look at the pricing on the Dodgers. Like the spot where I would most want to get to is Dodgers bats because Darvish can be so volatile, but you're paying a premium. I mean, you're paying more to roster to stack the Dodgers than you are to stack the Red Sox against Bruce Zimmerman. So it's pretty tough to get there when you consider, yeah, it's cool that you're getting low owned Dodgers, but you're also not going to be able to get like the same quality of pitching. You're not going to be able to get the same quality of one-offs as teams that are going, or as other DFS players that are stacking teams in better spots at, cheaper salaries.
Well, then that will do it, everybody. Make sure you're tuning in later tonight at 5 p.m. Adam and I will be back to break this one down again. We'll have a lot more information. NFL Strategy Show matchups coming up next. You don't want to miss it. Thank you guys for joining us. Shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell as you leave. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you later.